From the glimmering streets of a small Italian village to the shadowy depths of Pleasure Island, Disney's Pinocchio isn't just a story about a wooden boy who wants to become real. It's a story about temptation, corruption, and redemption. But what makes this tale truly timeless are its villains, each one more sinister than the last. A con artist fox, a cruel puppet master, a monstrous whale, and a man so evil he turns children into donkeys. This is the untold story of every villain in Disney's Pinocchio, how they intertwine, what they represent, and how they created one of Disney's darkest lessons ever animated. The World of Pinocchio's Temptations. Released in 1940, Pinocchio was Walt Disney's second animated feature after Snow White. But unlike its fairy tale predecessor, this film plunged straight into the moral complexities of growing up. Each villain in Pinocchio represents a different vice, a moral obstacle the young puppet must overcome to earn his humanity. Walt Disney himself once said he wanted children to, quote, feel the consequences of doing wrong, end quote. And these characters brought that idea to life in very chilling ways. It's a morality play disguised as a children's movie, and its villains are the puppeteers behind every test Pinocchio faces. Honest John and Gideon, the deceptive duo. Our first antagonist, Honest John, also known as J. Worthington Foulfellow, and his mute sidekick, Gideon, are the embodiment of deception. They appear friendly and charming, but their intentions are purely self-serving. Honest John spots Pinocchio on his way to school and sees opportunity, a naive, living puppet who can make them rich. They lure him away with promises of fame and fortune, convincing him that the life of a performer is better than the life of a student. In many ways, Honest John is the film's serpent in the Garden of Eden, a slick talker who tempts innocence with empty dreams. And Gideon, his clumsy cat companion, is cosmic relief, but also a reminder that evil often hides behind laughter. Unlike more forceful villains like Stromboli, Honest John manipulates through persuasion. It's psychological, and that's what makes him dangerous. Fun fact, his full name, J. Worthington Foulfellow, literally means dishonest man. A subtle wink from the animators. They would later reappear to sell Pinocchio again to the next villain, proving how temptation can resurface even after you think you've learned your lesson. Stromboli, the exploiter. Next comes Stromboli, a puppet master with a larger-than-life personality and even larger temper. He represents the greed and exploitation of the entertainment world, the way innocence can be commercialized and discarded when no longer useful. When Stromboli first discovers Pinocchio's ability to move and talk on his own, his eyes practically turn into gold coins. He traps Pinocchio into performing in his traveling puppet show, and the moment the act ends, Stromboli locks him in a cage like property. This moment is crucial. It's the first time Pinocchio realizes the world can be cruel and that his actions have consequences. It's also the film's turning point, transitioning from playful curiosity to genuine fear. Animator Bill Teitla, who also animated Chernabog in Fantasia, infused Stromboli with wild, unpredictable energy, giving him bursts of motion that feel like a storm about to break. And it's intentional. Stromboli's violence reflects how greed transforms people into monsters of control. Unlike Honest John, who deceives through charm, Stromboli rules through fear, a perfect contrast in villainy styles. The Coachman, the face of corruption. If Stromboli's greed wasn't enough, the film introduces an even darker force, the Coachman. He's the man behind Pleasure Island, a nightmarish carnival where, quote, bad boys, end quote, can do whatever they want until they're turned into donkeys and sold. His calm, eerie demeanor makes him one of Disney's most disturbing villains. He's not loud or theatrical, he's quietly menacing. And the fact that he's never punished makes him all the more terrifying. Many fans believe the Coachman represents the dangers of moral decay, how indulgence in vice can literally transform a person. In Pinocchio, it's quite literal. Boys who drink, smoke, and vandalize turn into animals. The donkey transformation scene is often cited by film historians as one of Disney's scariest moments ever animated. Walt Disney wanted to show that pleasure without conscience leads to destruction, and the Coachman's Pleasure Island delivers that warning perfectly. It's no coincidence that both Honest John and the Coachman profit off of the corruption of children. They're part of the same moral ecosystem that tempts Pinocchio at every step. If you've made it this far, that means you're really enjoying this deep dive, and I appreciate you for sticking around. So if you love learning about the hidden stories behind Disney's classics, consider liking this video and subscribing so you never miss out on our next untold story. Now, let's talk about what happens when Pinocchio's sins come full circle. Lampwick, the mirror of rebellion. Enter Lampwick, the mischievous boy who befriends Pinocchio on the way to Pleasure Island. He isn't truly evil, but he is the embodiment of bad influence and why he made it on this list. Lampwick represents the voice that tells us rules don't matter, that life is about doing what feels good. His friendship with Pinocchio highlights one of the film's most relatable lessons, that not all villains wear villainy on their sleeve. Lampwick's horrifying transformation into a donkey is Disney's visual metaphor for losing your humanity through selfishness. And what makes it even more tragic is that he has no idea that it's happening until it's too late. Monstro, the Wrath of Nature. After escaping Pleasure Island, Pinocchio must face his final trial, Monstro the Whale. Unlike the other villains, Monstro isn't human. He's nature itself, vast and uncontrollable. Monstro represents divine retribution, the consequence that comes after every moral failure. When Pinocchio dives into the ocean to save his father Geppetto, he confronts both literal and symbolic judgment. The whale's roar, animated with incredible realism, was actually created by layering tiger growls and explosions, giving Monstro his monstrous sound. In a way, he's less of a villain and more of a force of fate, the final challenge Pinocchio must overcome to become real. Comparing the villains, Disney's moral spectrum. What makes Pinocchio unique is how its villains interconnect to form a complete moral journey. Honest John tempts through deception. Stromboli abuses through greed. The Coachman corrupts through indulgence, and Monstro punishes through nature. Each one is a step in Pinocchio's education, the emotional and spiritual ladder towards self awareness. They're not just random antagonists, they're reflections of human vice. And unlike other Disney films, Pinocchio doesn't need a single climactic villain death because the real villain is the moral weakness itself. That's what makes this story so timeless. When Pinocchio debuted in 1940, it wasn't an immediate box office success, but over time, I'd argue it became a moral masterpiece. Every re release, every adaptation, and every retelling reminds us of Walt Disney's bold choice to tell children that good choices matter even when no one's watching. From the sly charm of Honest John to the pure terror of the Coachman, these villains aren't just characters, they're the tests we all face as we try to become real in our own lives. And that's why Pinocchio remains one of Disney's darkest, yet most meaningful journeys. A story that proves sometimes the scariest monsters aren't in the shadows, they're inside the choices that we make. Thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it, consider hitting that like button, subscribing, and commenting down below which story you'd like to see next.